Hi, and welcome to Let Into Gold, featuring music industry professionals who are making an impact in both local and international creative industries. Guests from a variety of backgrounds join the Alchemical Records team of contributors to discuss industry news and introduce audiences to a day in the life in their world. This web series provides a means for indie artists to learn about the many areas that make up the creative scene, as well as a platform for guests to promote their causes. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to our contributing writer, Margaret, who's going to introduce today's guest.
Hi, so today's guest, Elise, is a New York City-based electronic artist inspired by her synesthesia, I think I said that right, often referred to as a conductor of color. She's a classically trained violinist and producer who creates music that produces colors she wants to see. Recently, Annie was tapped to join network music group's A&R team to increase representation of women in the industry. Network Music Group is one of the world's largest independent record labels, credited with helping to launch the careers of fan favorites such as Sarah McLachlan, Coldplay, and Angus and Julia Stone. We're so excited to have Annie join us to discuss her career, women in music, and more. So let's get started. We'd like our audiences to get to know you and the work you do in the creative community better. So how did you get your start in music? And did you always know you would pursue a career in the arts?
Yeah, well, thanks for the introduction. It's an honor to be here. I think that growing up, I had always had a feeling that I would be somewhere in music, but I didn't quite know where that would be. And if you told me like years ago that I would end up now as an A&R, I'd be like, that's crazy. Like, no, I'm not going to end up as an A&R. So definitely a big surprise. But it's a great fit, I guess. But the way I actually got started in music was first through playing the violin. I grew up in a very musical home. My dad was just a general music teacher, and I begged him to teach me piano. And he was like, no, we're going to get you like another teacher because I don't want to be teacher and dad. And I really appreciated that. But, it was frustrating at the time, so I just wanted to play piano. But I started violin, I think, when I was 8 and just kind of grew to love it. I loved playing in orchestras. I loved just playing violin in general. And then when I was 10, my dad's school was gifted kind of an iMac lab. And he was starting to teach them more about music technology. And I was the guinea pig for that curriculum. And I ended up absolutely loving it, just like obsessed with the projects that he was coming up with. They were like little projects too. Like, I think one of the prompts was, you're now in charge of creating a Mario game and all of the sound effects. Come up with a sound effect for the coin. And I was like, this is so cool. So at the age of 10, I started sneaking up to my parents' room and just playing around in GarageBand whenever I could. I really just became obsessed with it. And I would say that's probably where my love of production first came. And that just kind of never went away. I made music with GarageBand all the way up until I saved enough allowance money to buy Logic, which was it's a step up from GarageBand. And then eventually I got into Berklee College of Music for playing violin. In my first semester, my fingers stopped working, so no more violin. I was diagnosed with focal dystonia, and so the violin career piece kind of just, it was clear that wasn't going to work out anymore. So at that point, I had to make a choice. Like, am I going to leave Berklee now that I can't play violin and tour and perform and all of that, or because I didn't want to leave the music industry. So I ended up making a pivot into production, which was quite a learning curve, but so rewarding, and I love the space so much. So in a nutshell, that's how I ended up here. A lot of twists and turns, and a long story, but yeah.
I think that so many people that we speak with, like yourself, have to wear so many different hats in order to like balance the different roles and the balancing of skill sets that they love to perform versus activities they love doing a lot less. Their artists are very focused on their artistry, but can you talk a little bit about what you feel are some of your roles, or maybe what you feel are some of the multiple kinds of roles that artists might need to have today in order to keep things balanced?
Oh, absolutely. Diversification is really everything right now, especially in a market that's so saturated. If you can't do everything, then going to find someone who can. So I guess kind of in my path, I have an artist project. I also work as an A&R at Network. As a producer, I end up doing electronic production. I also have to mix and master and, be pretty good at songwriting. And I still play string and can arrange things like that from time to time. You have to be proficient at multiple different instruments. You have to have an idea for what your shows are going to look like and know enough players to be able to, put a show together. You also have to be like good at social, like it's really just everything, and it can get really exhausting if you don't have enough people to help. So I think about a year ago, I started working with a manager. I love her. It was like the best decision ever to help manage some of those things. And I would tell people, because I thought for a while, like, oh, I'm not like notable enough to have a manager. Like I'm not selling out stadiums or anything. But I think that what independent artists often overlook is that doing everything yourself is absolutely exhausting. No one can sustain that. And so even just having somebody else that is dedicated to your project, even if you're paying them, and can help you even like mentally, just keep going with the workload and take a little bit of that pressure off of you. I think it's so worth it to just have someone else along for the ride. And so I think that indie artists, we tend to have this mentality of like, oh, I have to do everything myself, but that's not true. I think that creating a good team is like the best thing that you can do as an artist.
So Annie, and talking about all of your hats, I like to talk just a little. You had mentioned your position with Network. So I believe that you're there to help increase the representation of women. And so we know that that's a ubiquitous problem. So many people have devoted their careers to moving the needle with equity and representation, and we still have a long way to go. So can you just talk to us a little about kind of the unique approach that you bring to your work to help advocate for change?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I'm sure you know, in the music industry right now, women are just missing all around, as artists, as producers, as songwriters, in every aspect. I think a study actually came out from the Grammy Foundation today, that just kind of gave some more updated information on that. And it turns out they came to the conclusion that we are overworked and underpaid. And I would say that's absolutely how it is. And so what we tend to find, or what I've seemed to notice in my A&R work so far, is that it's difficult to find women that are like willing to do some of the work that major labels are asking them. So in my work, I try to connect people with like gigs, especially women and non-gender conforming people, like with gigs that are going to be worth it for them, where we can treat them with respect, make them feel empowered, creative, and pay them fairly, so that there's some type of support there. I would say that the job of an A&R, especially one trying to increase, the presence of women behind the scenes, is to be a cheerleader, because that's, women need advocates, and that's the only way that I think that change is going to happen. And they need a specific type of advocate. For a while, I thought that, going into production, because I thought I was going to go into production for a long while, that just by leading by example, that would be enough. But that's not true. If you don't have somebody who's thinking of you and connecting you with opportunities in a position of power, like nothing's ever going to happen. Nothing's really going to change. But by having people with these goals in positions of power, such as an A&R role or another music executive role, you're able to kind of play matchmaker to, help expand the careers of women that really deserve it and are so talented.
Thanks so much.
All right, so if you're just tuning in, this is Let Into Gold with Annie Elise, sponsored by Alchemical Records. And my favorite segment that I like to talk about is the industry news. And on this International Women's Day, we celebrate Dolly Parton writing a book with James Patterson, of all people, called Run, Rose, Run, about a singer-songwriter in Tennessee. Anything to say about that? Plus the fact that James Patterson said that he has written country songs of his own.
I admit it was not news I was expecting to see. It was not on my bingo card for 2022.
Another thing that fascinated me was the fact that the best original score for Oscars would not be played on air. And I just found that not fair because I feel like the score really makes a movie of its own, like Encanto and Power of the Dog were some of the nominations this year.
Yeah, it was really surprising for me to hear that, that wasn't gonna be aired. I think a lot of people that are, especially, I think of my friends that are film scoring majors, and the only, well, not the only, but a lot of the connection between music and film is there in the score. And so as musicians, it is kind of, I don't know, it hurts. It's like a slap in the face that it's not going to be aired. But I don't know. I don't really work in film, so I feel like it for everyone here, but
I
definitely sad.
heard I heard that there might be categories like best editing that were also not going to be live on the air. They were going to be pre-edited and then later, I don't know, broadcast. So they were actually kind of shunting the editors from out of the live category too.
Yes, they kind of cut kind of a lot of the behind the scenes categories this year.
Ah, breaks my heart as a person advocating for behind the scenes in music. It's like it's happening all over, and those people really deserve credit. And if you're hoping to increase representation behind there, it really matters to be able to see it. So that's what I would say.
All right. Well, you can learn more about Annie Elise by visiting her website, or you can find her on social media at Annie Elise Music.
Annie, I also kind of in industry news, I was looking at the Juno Award nominations. Do you have any thoughts on the nominations? And it was just interesting to see that Charlotte Cardin is leading with 6 nominations, which was exciting.
Yeah, I mean, award shows are always a super exciting time. It's always nice to get to see. I don't know. I grew up watching the Grammys actually. I used to print out this is so bad. I used to print out like a scorecard almost of like everybody who was nominated, and then my family we would not like place bets, but place bets, and then we'd see who got the closest. And I won every year. That's my little claim to fame. And we really should have like had a prize, but we didn't. We just got pizza and watched the Grammys. But I did that every year, and I imagine that there are a lot of people like me who are growing up watching the Grammys, looking to go into music, watching the Junos, looking to go into music, even watching the Oscars and wanting to go into music. Like those things are seen, and I think that it's always exciting to kind of see the talent pool that is creating the influence for the next generation of musicians. We have a few artists at Network, I think, that are nominated for Juno Awards too, which is incredibly exciting.
I have to admit that I grew up watching the Grammys and the Billboard Music Awards
Ah,
regularly.
yes, another one. Woohoo!
Yeah. I've had a chance. I didn't get to Vegas very often, but I've had a chance recently to go and see, see the spot where they do all the outdoor camera stuff coming in. So that's very cool.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, this is my last year as a part of Grammy U, so hopefully soon I'll get that Grammy membership and I can go in person.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
was going to. Oh, go ahead.
I have 2 more years, and I didn't really get much of it experience so far because I joined right before COVID. But
Oh no.
yeah,
We'll have to get an update on that. Maybe we'll have to put out a limited series of Mara finishing Grammy U. That would be cool. I was wondering if I could ask you if you had seen about Bandcamp being bought out by Epic Games.
I did see about that.
Like, do you have any thoughts or opinions or how that might affect you or your position or the artists you're working with?
That's a tough one because, you want to be optimistic whenever things are going to, when they're being bought out, especially something as important to artists being able to make a living as Bandcamp is. So I think when I initially saw the news, I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. And then like a minute later, I was like, wait, wait, Epic Games is buying it. Does like what if they take away the artist streaming rights? Like, is that going to stay? So I think there's just a lot of uncertainty, especially from an A&R perspective of what exactly is going to happen here. Because there's just a lot of question marks about what all this is going to mean and the change. It's great. I think that Bandcamp is going to get some structure from a bigger company. I think that in order for them to stay afloat and stay relevant, they definitely need support like that. I just don't know what's going to change. My hope is that Bandcamp will possibly kind of start their own streaming platform, kind of a little like somewhere in between SoundCloud and Spotify, but with the goal of paying artists fairly. I think that's like there's a big demand for that right now. And the partnership with Epic Games would definitely give them the infrastructure to do that. So that's where I kind of sense it might be going, but you never know.
That's an exciting perspective. Thank you.
And so Link here, and diving a little deeper into your A&R experience, you're a couple months into your job with Network now. Could you speak maybe about one thing that surprised you, or even a couple things, if you like, in the role so far?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I mentioned earlier, I come from a production background. And when I was first contacted by Network, my initial thought was like, oh my gosh, like I don't know how to be an A&R. And I think the thing that has surprised me most is that the world of being a producer and the world of being an A&R, it collides in a really weird way, and like an opposite way than I think most people traditionally get into A&R. So I think a lot of the Network team is of we call them recovering managers, people who used to be music managers or used to work at a major label or something like that. So they all come from the business side, and clearly I don't really come from a business side, but what I do come from is a creative background. So I understand the ins and outs of how a record's created. I know a lot of producers, co-writers, engineers, especially women, that we can like tap for creative side of a record, which is something that you can't really teach at business school or in areas like that. So I find it's really helpful to come in from a creative background. And also in my work as an artist, I kind of understand what types of deals or what type of support is going to be attractive to an artist. Especially someone who comes from an indie background. I'm still an indie musician, even though I work at a label. Yeah, so I think the part that surprised me most was how well being a producer and artist kind of set me up for the A&R world. Obviously, there was still a ton to learn, and there's still a ton to learn, but I expected it to be like, I don't know, a completely other category, and I was surprised to find it was like, oh, it just is all together. It's just a different hat. Same outfit, different hat.
Thank you so much.
Awesome, thank you. So for those of you joining us here at Alchemical Records' latest web series, Let Into Gold, our team is here with Elise. And there's so much work to be done in the creative community. So during this last segment, we'd like to explore how individuals can get involved with efforts like yours, Annie, in the creative community, from seasoned members to of the scene to newcomers. So I think my big question is, now that we know that you made this really big pivot sort of from performance to A&R, and that's become sort of a staple of like pandemic work in this new era that we're living in, people making really big career shifts, the great resignation, the big quit, all this really big stuff happening. So I'm curious, given that you also sort of experienced this as part of your career trajectory, can you talk about some of the work that was required on your part in order to make that change, whether that's literally, emotionally, or otherwise? Like, give us a little insight on like how you made that transition.
Oh, that's an interesting question. I was definitely very scared at first when I made the transition. I'm coming in as one of the youngest on the team with people who've been doing it for years and years with amazing artists. And it's really kind of intimidating to be like, wow, I have no formal A&R experience. I'm just coming in. But what I've found kind of in making that transition, and as well as I think other people who are making these big career changes as part of the Great Resignation and everything, is that it really stems from confidence and it stems from passion. Like, you have to really love what you're doing and be super motivated by it. And that's so hard to keep sight of, I think, especially when we're all working from home. We're trying to, like jobs that have you doing the same thing every day. It's hard to keep that passion. And I think that one of the things that helps me make the transition is that I guess my big goals for me as a producer, for me as an artist, and me as an A&R, they're all the same. It's to get more women in this mix, to up this 2% number of producers in the industry. And so having that as a driving force behind all three things, I think made the transition a lot easier and kind of helped me feel more like, okay, I do have a place. I have a place, I have a point of view and a vision here. And by sheer will of me needing more women friends in this space, it's gonna happen. And I think that having goals really helped, especially goals that aligned with things that make me go personally, I don't know, that was a weird answer, but I hope that answered your question.
No, I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think that's always the thing, right? Like you don't want to make a big transition without there being some sort of drive behind it. So I think you're absolutely like right on the money. And I think that's part of the reason I think people have like these hidden drives that they sort of like consider like their side hustles. And I think one of the cool things that this moment in time has allowed a lot of people to do is like reprioritize that to like the top of their lists.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, it's just really interesting to
Seeing
see
it a
people
lot.
really engaging.
Yeah, and I think you're seeing it a lot too with independent musicians that are utilizing like social media or even something like Bandcamp or even NFTs with the artists. Like there are now ways that you can make a living based off of your side hustle, which I think this is it. We joke it's like the most saturated time in history ever to try to start something new on your own as a freelancer. But it's true. Like there's more demand and there's more work and there's more ways for you to get that side hustle out there, I guess. So that's exciting as a musician because what the old school model used to be where you had to be scouted by an A&R, you needed a label. That's not the case anymore. You don't really need a label. Which is part of the reason I love working at Network is because Network knows that artists don't maybe need us, but the value that we can add to the artists that we work with is it's something that we have as our goal and our vision. And if that's what you're looking for as an artist, great, then we're the great partner. But that's how we operate, is as a partner rather than like a label. And I love that model. I think it's so important, especially for this time in history as content creators and music makers and everything. Is you can't get drained by it. As I was saying earlier, having people in your corner to help is just so important.
I think what you just said is probably a lot of what has to do with the next question. But what advice do you have for someone who is interested in pursuing a career as a music industry professional, and maybe more specifically, as a woman pursuing a career as a music industry professional?
Oh man, so much advice I would give to my younger self. First of all, I would say that so when I was growing up, I think the only visible women I saw in production was maybe Grimes, maybe Imogene Heap, but both of those are kind of more known by their artist projects. I didn't really know a female producer until I went to Berkeley and had one as a teacher. So it's just crazy. Like and now you look and you see that behind the records, maybe it's not a 50-50 split of like women to non-women producers, but there are some. They're visible and they're there and you can find them. And I think that is awesome. The representation is awesome to look for. But I know that's not really answering the question, but it is just a nice thing to know that it is getting better. It's slow, but it's steady. And I'm excited to see where it's going to go. But in terms of advice I would give to especially young women trying to start in the industry is that, first of all, you have to trust your instincts. That was advice I got before I go to college, and not a day goes by that I don't think about it. Is that your instincts as a musician are very strong, not only as a musician, but also as a person, that you kind of, you have everything within you that you need. You know what music you like, you know what types of people you want to work with, even if you can't put words to it, you know. And I think that's something that we as women kind of forget that we can trust our instincts, that we don't have to logic it out or have a good reason to do something or not do something, that our instincts are something that can be trusted. And I thank my instincts a lot. Sometimes I just have a hunch that maybe don't do this thing, or maybe don't work with this person, getting some weird vibes, and then I think almost always it turns out to be correct, which is crazy. So I would say that is the biggest thing I would say, and not even from like a working with people perspective, but from your own music as well. As an A&R, I talk a lot with artists who are trying to find their sound, and it always ends up that the sound that we end up using is kind of the sound that they've loved all along. It's like, what a concept. What you liked the whole time. And so that's like another thing, is that you can trust who you are as a musician and as a professional, and draw upon that. Those are instincts you can trust too. So that's probably the biggest piece of advice that I would give. I was grateful to receive it while I was still in high school. But I think I would also say that in addition to trusting your instincts, you also have to love what you're doing. There are a lot of things that we like, not a lot of things that we love. And if you only like it, you are going to hate it very quickly. But if you love it, then that is something to follow. I love music. I don't really see myself anywhere but in music. There were some things I liked. I liked statistics. I liked engineering and all of that. And it's funny because now I still get to do those, but within music, which I love. So that's all nice things. So yeah, that's the two pieces of advice. Oh, and then my third piece of advice is to know your worth and don't go down on it. From a dollar perspective, there's been instances where I've been asked to mix something, and I give them my rate, and they say, no, that's too high, and then they go, and I'm like, sorry, okay, that's fine, and I send them on to a friend of mine, gives them the same rate, and for some reason that rate's okay. That's weird. I don't know. So it took me a long time to feel comfortable in charging something that was going to be worth my time. But I think that's something that isn't talked about enough, is how much you can charge as someone in the industry. What is your time worth? What is your value that you can bring? And that's something you kind of have to figure out yourself, I guess. But figuring it out, thinking about it sooner than later is a good move.
Do you have any advice for allies in the support of just lifting up women in the industry right now? Is there things that aren't being done that should be done? Are there things that are happening that should be done better? What are your thoughts from your experience?
Number one, if you see something, say something. That's an issue we come up upon a lot. If you see someone acting weird, treating someone else in the room and it's making them uncomfortable, like, say something, because if there's only one woman in the room, there's like four men. I don't know. Like, you have the power to kind of defuse that situation and help make everybody comfortable. And all too often I see people who just don't say anything because they're afraid of, I don't know what they're afraid of, but it seems they're uncomfortable doing that. And I think that normalizing that, especially in sessions and spaces like that, it goes a long way. Being an advocate and speaking up is really helpful. I would also say just supporting and trying not to tokenize women behind the scenes. I actually hate the term female producer because it implies that I'm a female first and then a producer instead of just a producer. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's always frustrating when people reach out and they want to work with me on the production side because I am female. It's like I check off a box for them. And that doesn't feel so great. Like, I would rather somebody want to work with me because they want to work with me, not because I check their diversity checkbox. And I think I'm not the only one that feels that way. I think that is that's kind of a feeling that a lot of us have in the industry right now. So I think genuinely supporting your female creatives and their work, and just genuinely loving streaming, hiring especially, is great.
Annie, one thing that I wanted to ask, when you were talking about like advice and everything for women who want to get in the industry, one thing that we didn't ask you was just to go through, can you take us through maybe like a day in your life, just a random day, kind of how your day starts, and what happens throughout the day, just to help illustrate to people what it could be like?
Yeah, absolutely. So most people that I know in the industry have kind of a music day job and a music night job. So my music day job, of course, is an A&R for Network. So that's the day. Network's actually based in Vancouver, and I am on the East Coast having a grand old time. So the day starts a little later for me because I think like 1 p.m. for me is 10 a.m. for them. So it's nice. So I usually wake up. I do some say I do some scouting is a little bit weird, but I do start my day listening to a lot of music, listening to any demos that come my way, seeing what's up in the new Spotify editorial playlists, any new releases, just kind of keep up with that. And then usually a day at Network is filled with a lot of meetings. We have departmental meetings, we have meetings with artists, meetings with managers, just artist development meetings in general, sometimes some marketing meetings, sometimes some production meetings. You never know what kind of meeting day it's going to be. And then we also schedule just like fun little checkups too with each other. I just had lunch with a bunch of my coworkers in New York last week, and that was really fun. So that's kind of the afternoon. And then after I'm done with Network for the day, it's production time. It's the music night job. So I'll make dinner, sit down, work for a few hours. Sometimes it's a virtual session, sometimes it's a mixed session, sometimes it's my own music. But I can usually get about 3 or 4 hours in a day of some good production work, which is nice. I started doing some production work for Network as well, which is really fun. And then, yeah, I guess it's those. Sometimes at night I have a show. Sometimes I go to a show for one of the Network artists or just the show of a friend. A lot of people come to Boston, which is where I'm located right now. And I'm actually going back home to the Pennsylvania area not next week. But this is like not a normal day in my life. But Again and Again, which was my last single, was nominated for Song of the Year for the Central Pennsylvania Music Awards, which I'm really excited about. It's really great to have a song that I produced and wrote recognized by my hometown, which is pretty much classified by metal country music. So there's not much pop music that goes on in Central Pennsylvania. So it's definitely a big honor. But yeah, sometimes you have little special events like that are always in the night. So that doesn't sound super exciting, but it is. It's really fun to get to work with a bunch of creative people who are really passionate about the work that they want to get done, and they're excited about the value that we can add to it at Network. I love talking to so many people in a day. I just get really excited about the possibilities of their music and how it can grow. It's just really exciting to see where the Network artists are going. I don't know. Yeah, and then also getting to do it while getting to do production in my own artist project after. It's great.
It's definitely rewarding to be on the artist journey from any side that you're allowed to see it from.
It's weird. I feel like I'm seeing it from 3 completely different sides. Like on one side, I am the artist. On the other side, I'm like the producer, which usually an artist would hire. And then on the third side, I'm scouting artist. So it's a weird mix of hats to wear, but I enjoy it.
Well, thank you for sharing so much of your day with us and about all the different kinds of work that you do.
Thanks. I love talking about it.
If you're just tuning in, you should rewind. Let Into Gold features music industry professionals who are making an impact both on local and international creative industries. We've thoroughly enjoyed our time with Annie Elise during today's episode, sponsored by Alchemical Records. Be sure to connect with us on our website at alchemicalrecords.com for the latest music news and happenings. You can also find us on your favorite social media platform, though you're most likely going to find Mara on your most favorite social media platform. Please also connect with our guest at Annie Elise Music to learn more and get involved in the impactful work she's doing to strengthen our music scene. Annie, do you have any final words as we close out?
I appreciate you taking the time to chat. And it's exciting to see people who are as passionate about raising up the scene as I guess I feel about it. So thanks again for taking the time to chat. I appreciate it.